Hail Internet, it is the Dork Lords, Paul, Matt. We're here to talk about the brand new series, Legion, on FX.
Yes.
Last night was Season 1, Episode 1, entitled, creatively, Chapter 1. We're going to, actually, each week we're going to try to come back, do a little recap and discussion about each show, try to get that out within a day. So, anyway, thanks for joining us. So, all right, Episode 1, Chapter 1.
Yes.
Paul, lead us off. What some general thoughts before we talk about, let's say, like a plot structure.
Sure. Well, my general thoughts is, I like the show, and it's interesting what they're creating. Everybody in the world knows what mutants are, so those are my general thoughts.
So positive thoughts. So obviously this is just takes place in the X-Men universe. I, for one, have not read Legion comics.
Nope.
Now you're a major comic book reader, a connoisseur.
Mostly in the past, but yes.
Of graphic novels, but Legion is not one that you have read either.
Correct.
Okay, so we're both coming at this somewhat like neophytes. I read a couple of articles first, so things we know really quickly about Legion. David Haller, central character. He is the son of Professor X, which we didn't learn in this show, but is a thing, and I don't think they're going to shy away from that. And he has, at least in the show terms, he has schizophrenia. Basically manifests itself as multiple personalities. And I think the idea is that the multiple personalities each have their own power. And so as he becomes a personality, he
or at least that's was in the original text.
That's the idea. Okay. So, I like the show a lot. It's quality filmmaking. You could tell like each scene, even each visual is like really well thought out and planned. It's stylish.
Yes.
There's a craftsmanship to it that I can appreciate.
Yeah, and it certainly goes off the original text. I mean, I'm familiar with the artist Bill Sienkiewicz, who did that work, more famously known perhaps for Moon Knight. But he's got an unusual visual style, so it's certainly in keeping for the series to have a different visual style.
Awesome. So we start with like a little montage of David growing up.
Right. Because the actual actor and presumably the character is in his 30s.
Right. So that's Dan Stevens.
Right.
Who Downton Abbey.
Right.
He's also
Matthew.
I looked up his.
And he died in the series. Oh, spoiler!
No, by the way, major spoilers all the way through this stuff, right? We're going to be theorizing, but also spoilerizing. So,
right. But here he's playing an American. So
also,
he did pretty good.
I did a little IMDb on him. He is the Beast in the upcoming live-action Beauty and the Beast. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Little nugget for you there. So he does an excellent job. I would say the one thing, there's so much about this particular episode that is it real or is it not?
Right.
That it almost like he's just reacting to things. I don't necessarily know. I didn't get enough about him particularly that I could rely on to say, that now I know about his character.
Right.
So he's still pretty enigmatic, in my opinion.
Okay.
I would like a little. I'm sure we'll get time with anyway. But he's in practically every scene, and yet it's hard to. He's such an unreliable narrator. It's like, wait, is that no? Okay, that wasn't a thing. Is that a thing? So he goes to his childhood. We see some moments where he has these like psychotic breaks. It seems, or there's a moment where he gets arrested and he's in a police car, and then the windows blow out of the police car, and he gets institutionalized. There's this scene where his mom. It's the scenes with his mom. There's a couple of them in the episode, and they're all done. I appreciate this with kind of there's like a tragic sense of humor in the scenes. Two of them I can think of in particular is the one where she visits him in the. I don't know. It's almost like a criminal prison.
I thought she was his sister.
Is that his sister?
I think so.
Okay. Sorry. I thought that was his mom. All right.
Keep talking.
She was youngish. It would be weird that she would be the mom.
Yeah.
But okay, we'll call it the sister. Okay. Yes, sister. So the sister, has the cupcake for him, like happy birthday, and then she's like eating it, and then like there's this. They have this weird relationship because we get the idea anyway that she doesn't have powers. She is not an person.
Well, she doesn't think her brother has powers.
True. She just thinks he's crazy.
Right.
And is dangerous. So she tiptoes around him. And then when he visits the house, again, we're not sure if that's real or not, but assuming it's real,
Seemed pretty safe.
it seemed pretty. When he's in the basement and then he breaks the lamp,
Right.
and she comes down and she does that little thing. She's just taking like the hedge clippers and all
everything's sharp.
Everything's sharp. Gardening. I just need to grab these items and take them away.
It was very good because it did the perfect timing on it, which is she looked and saw one and took it and like, oh, my husband's going to need this for gardening.
Yeah.
And then she took everything else.
So there's a little humor in there, which I appreciated.
Yes.
We get the feeling that this character, that David, has been institutionalized for a while.
Yes.
Is what I get.
Yeah, because we see him as teenagers, and then he's an adult when we finally meet the main character.
Now, we know, this. We know just from the character and the comics and from reading these articles that he has these multiple personalities.
Yes.
And that's kind of the origin of the source of his powers comes from, not source, but the manifestation of his powers is in these various personalities.
Right. Well,
right?
I think it's a question whether or not they're actually his personalities so much as the ones that are with him in his head.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
So, at some point, we see a character that he sees.
Right. So my question then is, if we know this, I mean, it's kind of like coming into the episode with a little pre-knowledge about this character. My sense is all the people, I won't say all, but it seems like maybe all of the people he meets in the asylum are actually his personality quirks, his different personalities. That the asylum itself is like his little mind palace. To make a Sherlock reference, he's made this mind palace, or it's created for him, where in this asylum are where he stores all of his different people, his different personalities. And that the real world is more of that interrogation scene with the red table.
Right.
And that, so like, for instance, that's weird because I spent the first half of this episode going, oh, blonde girl Sydney and headphone girl Lenny are, and bearded therapist guy are all manifestations of his personality. They're not real. They're imagined. But then, like, there's the breakout scene at the end.
I don't think that there are in his imagination. I don't, especially the therapist. But I think that so we saw Lenny, the headphone girl, and interacting with him as another patient.
Which, by the way, the IMDb page says originally supposed to be a middle-aged man, Lenny, but the director Hawley,
the series.
He liked Aubrey Plaza so much, he's like, you know what? We're going to keep the exact same character. We're not going to change the lines. You're going to be Lenny. So anyway, kind of interesting.
Right. So we saw them interacting with other people, not just each other. And then when the point in the story when David switches places, he goes into the body of the girl and walks out.
They kiss.
They kiss, right.
So they touch for the first time.
Right, and they switch places. One of the things that David sees as the girl is Lenny in a wall, coming through a wall, basically. And they say that she was killed later. So it said the girl killed him. But it wasn't me. It was really him.
That's true.
In her body. So I assumed that she was real, and then she was killed, and then she came back into...
She being Lenny.
Lenny, right. Killed and came back into his imagination there.
Okay, here's...
Because then she says, too, what was that life going to be?
I know.
Pills for the rest of
You're
my
right.
life?
You're right. Damn. All right, well, that you raise a valid point which somewhat negates what I was about to say. So what I'm about to say, probably wrong. All right, but here's what I got out of that. Like, how do I interpret this scene? So let's assume for a second, perhaps falsely, that these are just images in his head. Okay. So the kiss before Sidney gets to leave the hospital or leaves is actually the moment when, so let's say David is the primary personality and all these others are like little feeder systems.
Right.
Sidney takes over.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so the dominant personality is now Sidney, which then, remember when Sidney returns to the lab and there's no doors?
So that's...
And there's just walls?
An illusion seeing David being pulled back.
Right. Because now, and then if you remember, when there's no doors on the... that's what I got there. Like, suddenly there were no doors on the cells or whatever.
Right.
One of the people trapped in the cell, David. Like... In other words, he's been put into another he's been compartmentalized.
Right.
Maybe. I'm just saying.
I hear you.
But you're right. In that situation, then maybe in the real world there was also a death. But anyway.
Yeah, it's something. I mean, I've only seen it once, but I'd like to see it. Actually, I saw the second half twice, or not even the half, because I forgot what time it started. So thankfully they showed it twice. But I actually started watching when David visits his sister.
Okay.
So he goes to her house and like, oh, they let me out. So actually how he got out is a question.
Right.
Because we don't see that. We just see him back. He wakes up and he's back in his old body. He's outside.
Which was another point I was thinking.
So maybe when the girl Sydney was in David's body and killed Lenny, he was able to get out. Well, Sydney was able to get out in David's body. And so once they switched back and David was in his own body, he was like, oh, I'm outside. Oh, let me just go home.
Right. Because, when did they have time to anyway, so there's like, it's tough to know where the real world comes in and where the fake world comes out. And in fact, so the ending, there's the big action scene at the end, which is pretty cool, well filmed. It's like the escape scene. It's a little CGI.
Oh, very CGI.
You know, there's a little like, that's CGI, but I get the budget for the show.
Like, throwing people off. And start, like a little game, like video game, jumping around.
I would again say, if my theory, which is perhaps completely wrong, that those are again manifestations of his mind. He's escaping this area in his brain.
Okay.
But I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so like for instance, he's got a personality type that's got this uber telekinetic power.
Backing you up, I guess, was once they got to a certain point and she was letting him know, Sydney was not Sydney. Yeah, Sydney was letting him know that, okay, this is real. This is really happening. They must have just killed everybody else because everybody else is just like, let them figure out first before we kill them some more. Right. They didn't really attack after that point. So maybe they had killed everybody off, and then they were able to have a little extra time to have a conversation.
Now something I read in the IMDb page again, and that stuff is wrong a lot of times. Sure. So it's not gospel.
No,
but it would lend credence to my theory, so it must be true. No, okay. Anyway, one of the cast is Jean Smart.
Right.
She's playing this character Marion Bird. Okay, we only see her pretty much at the very end.
Right.
For the most part.
Right.
And there's a very obviously symbolic handshake at the end. She reaches out her hand.
Right.
He shakes it.
Right.
Okay. And then that's pretty much cut to black.
Sure.
Okay. In the description of her character, it says that she is a psychiatrist who uses unconventional methods.
Uh-huh.
I would say that moment is when she, as a psychiatrist, is reaching into his mind to say, work with me on this. Like, it's
your theory is that still a fantasy of some sort, even though the girl that he trusts tells him that it's real.
Correct.
Okay.
But
I think it's real.
Okay.
And I think they're really shaking.
So is there something that takes place in his imagination? In your mind, is there something that was in that show that only takes place in his imagination? I mean, obviously he dreams a few times.
Right.
The dance, maybe, I don't know.
Right,
the dance was cool,
yes,
by the way.
Dance,
I enjoyed the dance.
It was very Bollywood.
Yeah.
Certainly, when he's in the pool and getting saved, he does have sort of a glimpse of them in this imaginary world. So he's coming out of the pool after the explosion happens and kills just about everybody else there. And he sort of imagines Sydney and the two people who are assisting him, presumably who are also mutants. He sort of imagines
Tanami was one of them.
Yeah, Tom.
And then the other one. Yes. Okay.
So he imagines them in the world, but then he goes back to the world that So that's interesting. If it was another fantasy, I'm inclined to believe that it's real.
We also do see,
especially the thing that we see that he doesn't see, which is the pool world. With the world where he's being
right,
captured.
so that's kind of like the one scene, maybe though the one scene that he's not a part of.
Right,
when they say oh, we're gonna kill him in a day if you don't. We see the pool, we see the guy talking give me some more time. And it's well, we should kill him off. You have the gas,
right?
And that scene he is not a narrator in that scene,
right?
So we feel like that's real,
right?
Okay, so good point. So that would mean that the pool then would be real.
Yeah.
Okay. It could be like the end of Brazil where the guy escapes and then no, he's back in the chair.
They did establish that him remembering in order to tell the people when he's on the pool there, and they're saying we're gonna electrocute you unless you tell us more information about these people that that we're trying to take you. That he starts to remember what happened on the day, and then they project themselves into his memory to tell him, you should actually get down.
Yeah. Which also, by the way, I mean, it's a small point in some ways, but I was thinking at the time, wait, they went through this whole elaborate thing of putting him in a pool, and they didn't secure him to the chair? Because they're just sink down off the chair into the water. That seemed convenient somehow. They're I don't know. You're going to go through all that trouble, and you're wouldn't you tie him to the... I don't know. It just seemed odd. So, again, in his mind... Okay. I'm done. All right. I'm not done, but I'm kind of done. All right. Another thing that leads to the idea that the asylum is kind of all in his head is that maybe 5 or 6 times we see in the background, foliage, and there's a dude in the foliage,
right?
And we also see a couple of times we see the fat yellow-eyed guy, who supposedly is his nemesis.
Yeah,
and they're just hanging out in the corners,
right?
The idea would be even if the asylum was a real place,
right?
But that is an imagined part of it that he's created, right? So again, I'm not. Just because I know this guy has multiple personalities, and that's really the whole point of the show, I feel like there's a lot of characters that aren't real characters. Which is what's leading to me thinking that the asylum is a mind palace type thing. But okay. Anyway.
Okay. I think the asylum's real since his sister visits him there. And that's the only way that I can make sense of Lenny, is that she was a patient, and then he killed her, but when he wasn't in his own body. And I think maybe the whole his personalities maybe not be the correct way to think of it, just these delusions that he has, these characters that are in his mind.
Or maybe
he doesn't manifest and express themselves the way someone who's really multiple personalities would. He just have these sort of spirit guides or whatever that nobody else can see, but they're in his head.
Or is it possible that the people in his head are actual people he's met? That then he took their personalities, he absorbed their personalities, and so they are in his head, but in some way they're actually real people walking around as well.
Oh, you think there might be someone who exists in his head and in real life?
Correct. There might be a Sidney Barrett out there who's do 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 do, apart from the Sidney Barrett that's now in his brain.
Huh.
I don't know. That's a thing, maybe. And then
Right.
maybe in the case of Lenny, the real Lenny died. I keep having to make.
Real Lenny did die.
I feel like I'm Westworlding here.
Yeah, you're
I'm
really.
like, all right,
it's
the
really,
Man in
I
Black.
feel like you're trying to.
Here's the, okay.
It's too early to know. I say. I guess if we were trying to guess Men in Black this way, I think we would have been very wrong.
Yeah. So I think they're hiding the ball on a lot of stuff at the moment, which is fine. Episode 1, you want to set the mystery up.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested. I'm in. I want to see more of the show.
Yes.
And it is especially for a superhero X-Men universe type show, it is very different in that way.
Yes.
I would say.
Yes.
I don't know that I can think of a good parallel, even in like the Marvel, even say like a Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, or anything like that.
Right. No.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No. That's the good thing about what these people are trying to bring out is not trying to have everything out the same. What do we have that's like this? No, they're like, no, we've got different things. Let's keep showing different kinds of things.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing to me about this character of Legion, is that in the comics, since they make so many more comics than even currently we're seeing of comic movies in total in a year, they're like, oh, let's try this. You know, they'll try 60 episodes or issues or whatever, or even a year or so of some particular character or something, and then it'll end, and then they'll just move on. So they have so many properties to sort of say, hey, look at this weird thing that we tried.
And now, just FYI, I mean, I didn't know, so I had to kind of like Legion is the name of one of his personalities. And it's the most powerful one, theoretically.
Okay.
So he can warp time and space and is basically infinitely powerful. So I assume since the show is called Legion, that personality's probably in there or will manifest itself in some way at some point.
Right. Presumably, yeah, because right now, they're already talking about how powerful he is, but so far, him like pulling objects towards him in a room.
He made a little typhoon of objects and then he shot the pin at the interrogator's face.
Yeah, that's but, doesn't seem, in theory, much more powerful than the guy who was helping him escape, who's just throwing people off.
Yeah.
That's
collapsing
telekinesis, too. It's not sort of, all directed at himself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we haven't seen, like, a giant use of his power yet.
Right.
He probably just doesn't grasp what he can do.
Correct.
Anyway, there you go. Legion, episode 1. Come back for episode 2. Subscribe if you want to get little notifications that it's coming back around. And we will see you next week. Thanks, Paul.